since 2012, where amazing guests share their digital adventures. Who will we meet today? Small biz influencer, up-and-coming trendsetter, accomplished author? You never know who'll be dropping by. And now, here's your host, Elaine Lindsay, the bionic glamourpreneur with Truel Social Media, who's the second most curious person on the planet.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here with you again. It's going to be, well, it's a little chilly in here, but it's going to be a super warm show with a really amazing guest. I want you to say hi to James. James Machan's with us today. James is the Salvage Cowboy. And I'm going to tell you, okay, he actually is from Wyoming. Now, that's Wyoming, Ontario, folks. We are not in the U.S. today. We're here in Canada. Hi, James.
Hello.
It's really good to have you here, and it's really, I think, going to be really interesting for people to get to hear about what James does, because I found James through Facebook, and he does some really interesting artwork because he works with, I'm going to say, reclaimed wood, reclaimed buildings, and what I think he calls roadkill, which is something that I think is really quite fascinating. He has a real passion for, I think, everything old is what I get from what he does. And I was truly amazed by the breadth of the art that I saw in everything that he's put out. Managing to do what he does, and it's, you know, reclaiming what's old and working on the internet, doing this digital journey, I thought was really quite fascinating. So without further ado, James, why don't you give us a little bit of a look into where you came from, how you got to be the Salvage Cowboy there in Wyoming, Ontario?
Well, I grew up in Wyoming, Ontario. I moved to Wyerton, I don't know, maybe dates are bad for me, maybe 20 years ago, a little bit before that. And we bought my first home, and it was an older house. I think it was 1890, I think, or
wow.
19, I forget, 1910, because the one we're in now is 1892.
Wow.
And we had the summer kitchen in the back was in really bad shape. The house needed a lot of work to begin with, but the summer kitchen, we had a couple of contractors come in and they wanted to rip it down and then rebuild it. Mm-hmm. So we kind of weren't too interested in that. So my dad and I took on the project, and sourcing materials, we usually had to go to Kitchener or, you know, places that were quite far away because there was no real salvage up here. So I started I think probably one of the first buildings I did was the Lion's Head Hotel. It was attached to like a sort of an old folks home, or like more of a medical kind of thing. So I started salvaging there, and we put a lot of the material into the back room. So it was age appropriate, and from there, people stopped by our house and were asking, hey, do you have a doorknob? Do you have this? And there seemed to be a real call for it. And it was something that I really enjoyed. I really like the aspect of recycling and repurposing. Today, we make a lot of stuff, a lot of items that maybe don't get fixed. You know, it's more of a replacement kind of thing. So I like that part of it, that you could actually take material that was going to be thrown out and give it a second life. And that's how it all began, I guess.
I love that idea of giving things a second life. And one thing I will say for viewers, Wyerton is where we have one of our lovely, what do you call them, groundhogs that help us with the weather. Wyerton Willie is something and someone very near and dear to my an But Wyerton itself is, how far are you, say, from Kitchener or London, or like a more of an urban area?
Toronto, we're about 2.5 hours. I think Kitchener, we're about 2.5.
Yeah.
London would be about three kind of area.
So that is a fair piece for people to travel. So having someone or somewhere, your house, to be able to go to get things for their place, and let's face it, there's a lot of property around Wyerton and that whole area that is probably circa 1900 or circa the late 1800s.
Yeah, and it's hard to find some of the pieces. Yeah. So I really like the hunt to actually, I get people who ask me to look for stuff, and sometimes I can give them, like, that could take 6 years to find. Sometimes it could take 3 years. Some of it is very, very rare. I call it leprechauns, unicorns, and Sasquatch, depending on how hard it is to find, because some of it is really quite unique, and you can't really just go, well, you can't go to the hardware store to get parts for, if you have a broken part, right? Something that's broken on it. So, and then also the interesting part of meeting crafts people like welders and carvers and stuff like that, those type of people who can still fix the items.
Right.
Getting harder to find,
Oh, absolutely. I know here in Ottawa, we do have architectural salvage stores. We have a few, but I know there are some in Toronto, but that's 2.5 hours is quite a hike to go find a doorknob, or a small lintel or something. You don't just wake up one day and want to be really concerned about recycling and reusing. And so what was it for you as a child, or maybe what your father did? What is it that took you down this path? Because I know, looking at everything that you do, this is a true passion for you.
Thanks. I was thinking about that one day, and I thought, I think the thing that first started me out was Christmas and Thanksgivings at my grandma's house. She had a utility drawer, and in that utility drawer, she had a screwdriver, a brass screwdriver it's like one of those dolls that and this screwdriver, I think I have it now. It has about 4 or 5 screwdrivers, and they all fit inside of each other. And then she had a little container, a little barrel that had small clothespins in it. And when she passed away, my dad asked me if there was anything that I would like for my grandma. And I told her those 2 things, and no one even knew about them, or they were just in her utility drawer. I don't know if that's how it started, but the stories that the buildings and the material, like how many people lived in that house and what happened in that house, I think that's what interests me, to try to figure out, like, sometimes when you go into buildings where renovations have occurred or changes have occurred, figure out what changed and how it changed. And I don't know, I find that fascinating. And then we're not making it anymore.
Yes. Yeah. Craftsmanship now is not what it once was.
No, I don't. And it's the proportions too. Like,
yes.
I was thinking also, like, they say that the more identical you are on both sides, the more beautiful you are. So they say. But where was I going with that? The proportions, like when you build a house, like if the posts are too small or if the trim isn't big enough or something, I think it makes the whole picture come together if you have the proportions right.
Yes.
And that's very hard to do when you're like, when I repurpose, like let's say I take a porch post and I turn it into a plant stand. I go through all my lumber to find the right thickness and the right trim and kind of put it back together to make it have a new life. And I think the closer I get to good proportions, I think the more appealing it looks.
Absolutely. And that's a really good point that you've taken us to, a little sooner than I was going. But the fact is, you do repurpose in, to me, very unique ways.
Thanks.
Taking, as you say, a porch post and turning it into a plant stand. You do have some very unique things that you've done with pieces of homes, and you've taken on some really big projects.
Yes, yeah. I wish that there was more restoration.
Yeah.
And for me, restoration isn't always making it identical to what it was, but I'd like to even put older material, like we do that with our house here, where we have, maybe it wouldn't have been the original, and it's probably older than the house itself. But I like the fact it has so much, I don't know, it has so much character and so much warmth and feel to it. It just, I don't know, it makes you feel, for me, it makes me feel like I'm at home.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, a little earlier today, I was at a Christmas party in Ireland, and I was talking about us going to be doing the show today. And I was talking about the fact that you repurpose and you do different things, because I'm originally from Scotland.
Oh,
and
nice.
My grandparents' house in the Royal Mile, it was a 3-story apartment, and it was built in 1396.
Oh my God. Canada is so young. Canada is so young.
Exactly.
It is.
That's what we were talking about, because I said to them, yeah, he takes old. They said, what do you mean old? And I said, well, not to us per se, but Canada's such a young country. And it seems here in North America, we're in too much of a rush to dispose of what was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And start fresh. And things are, to me, not as aesthetically pleasing because there is no character. You know, putting up exactly identical boxes just is not the same from old weathered stone and beautiful wood.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, I did my first plane trip and I went to England, and I literally, my sister had to keep me from getting hit by a car because there was so many old buildings and thatched roofs with animals on top of them.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Like you could walk around and you could be in a 400, 500-year-old building and you could see a stone step that had been worn by people's feet. That takes thousands and thousands and thousands. I have thumb latches at home where the thumb part has wore the decoration. The thing I say to people is keep a coin in your pocket and rub it every day. And how long would it take you to rub the face off the coin? I mean, it's just like when you look at that stone, you think, how many people walked over that to wear that stone? It's just, I love that trip there. All I took was pictures of buildings. It was, you know, Canada's only 150 some years old. There, you know, we were in a pub that was 500 years old.
Yeah.
Like it's
the pub down the street from my grandparents' place was, had to be. But some of the stairs, it was a turret stair. They were on the top of the 3rd floor. And some of the stairs were no deeper than my hand in the middle, because there'd been so many people over the hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah. And it's those things that when I collect something, those little things about it make it so fascinating, because I don't know, like to wear the decoration off a thumb latch. I mean, I love that. It's you know, and to find that a new home, like a lot of material like porch posts and some other material can't be coated. It's very hard to get it coated for new construction.
Right.
The porch post needs to be turned into something else to get it a second life, because it's most likely not going to be used as a porch post, right? So some of it is drop dead. It's gorgeous, like it's ornate and decorative, and I think the best challenge is to find something. Like I love going into an old farm dump, like something maybe from the 20s or 30s. And like I found an old Coleman stove where I took the sides off and turned it into a box, and just find stuff that, you know, it can't have a purpose as a stove anymore. So it's too cool to throw out in my mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it makes much more sense to reuse these things, certainly. Now, I know there is something, a passion project you have been working on, or I think it's off and on for quite some time, trying to restore a town building, right?
Oh no, it was a dream.
It's your dream. Okay.
There's a building in Owen Sound, the courthouse, that
Yes.
I was in jeopardy of. I'm not sure what the outcome will be. I mean, it would be nice to give it a second life, and my maybe second life would maybe not be what, maybe some people would hope. There's a part jail and there's a stone wall. It's a gorgeous building, but it desperately needs a lot of money and a lot of time put into it, right? All new electrical, all new plumbing, a new roof, and my dream would be to spend 15 years bringing it back to life and then just give it back to the city or something. It's hard to come up with a plan that works and to definitely find the funding. My worry is that it will hopefully not disappear, but we have lost a fair amount of buildings in Owen Sound, that like the Queen's Hotel and other buildings that were quite prominent and could have been repurposed, but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of money. And our house was like that. Our house had been neglected for 10 or 15 years. We spent 6 years, bringing it back, hand sanding floors and just stuff that people think is crazy. But I mean, I sit in it now, and I mean, it's going to be here for another 50, 60 years or more, I hope.
Yeah.
With more stories.
Absolutely. And that's a big piece of it, is the stories. So the Owen Sound Courthouse, you're envisioning it, this dream of yours is to perhaps have some wonderful venture capitalist or some financial angels come in that maybe have ties to Owen Sound and that want to see things preserved.
Yes.
Because the heritage, the longevity, and the stories that had to have been in that courthouse.
Oh yeah, and even the jail and the wall, the stone walls will never be built again.
Yes.
Walkerton has a jail that has a stone wall, and they've repurposed it. It's now offices or whatever it is, and it's there to stay, right?
Yeah.
But I realize there's logistics and a lot of stuff that I guess has to happen, but it just,
But wipe all that away and just imagine, okay, you can reach out right now, okay, you've got the whole internet in front of you, and you can say, this is your dream. What do you want to happen to that courthouse?
I'd love to get the architectural drawings for their original roof, put a tarp or a dome over the top of the whole thing, pull the roof off, reconstruct the whole roof originally, because right now there's support beams through it that wreck the whole. It used to be like big cathedral, but they've had to put support beams through to rebrace it. Then after the roof's done, I would probably put copper or steel for sure. Copper would be nice. All the soffit and fascia would have to be repaired and repainted, and then start on the inside. Rip out all the old wiring, rip out all the plumbing, because there's nothing functioning in there, and then clean all the mold out of the jails and do the roofs there and get the property back up. Use it as a artist market. Just. And then my one thought was for the people who would donate money, create a stone out front to put all their names on it.
Yeah.
Do something to. It's a wild dream. It's
that the best dreams are the wild dreams.
Yeah. And preserve the building.
Yes.
It's a very prominent building in Owen Sound, and it would be we see a lot of development where older buildings are being torn down or being quite like they're partially there. But I look at it this way. I have a strange way of looking at a house, and I walk by a house and it's crazy, but I say that it's crying. And it's nice when you can walk by a house and it's actually happy that the people are, I hope our house is. We've tried to do right by it, but it is not restored, technically back to everything that was everything. It has wide baseboards. It has, it has the original windows and doors and stuff like that, but we put some stuff into it that's character from other houses, and each to their own. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
Absolutely. But the fact is you and your wife are happy there, right?
We are, very much so. We love the house. Yeah.
So what's the square footage in Owen Sound? Just out of curiosity.
The courthouse?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Roughly?
It's big. You see, there's the courthouse, then there's like the building beside it where everybody would have stayed. And then there's actually two jails, or an older part of jail and another part, and then the stone wall encompasses the
whole
jail.
thing. Yeah.
I would think, I don't know, I don't even know exactly the square footage of our house, but it would be big, yeah.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot
That's
like
big.
that.
I don't know all the technical story.
No, don't be sorry. You're talking about your passion in the way that best suits you, and I think that's awesome.
We had to walk through it, and I walked in. There's a place at the back that has the original steel doors with the original carpenter locks on it, and they're like, I don't know. I think there were little vaults, and then there was clay chimney pots that I know are very difficult to obtain or even find, and a tin ceiling with a big vaulted and windows and stuff, and then you go up into the attic. And if it was the original timber structure, it would just be immense. And then there's even a place where you climb up in the tower. Now, my wife went up on the stairs. I did not go up on the stairs. It looked really sketchy. Like it was like the old, winding, and they were all out of wood. I just think it would be an incredible ordeal to tackle it. That's for sure. And, would I have the skill? I don't know. I definitely have the passion. That's for sure.
And sometimes that's all you need.
I am looking for some crazy people to. I had a weird idea of, if I could get 300 people to donate $2,000. I think that realistically, I would need probably 6 to 8 million to restore it or to bring it back to a life that would last for another 100, 200 years. And that itself is like, it's wild.
It's wild, but guess what? In the larger scheme of things, to rebuild from scratch now, to make a courthouse with an adjacent jail and another building and a courtyard, you're talking probably twice what you just quoted me.
Yeah, and then like just the stone wall.
Yeah.
And if you could find masons that could actually, I've done a little bit of mason work. I did some out. We had a wall beside our house that was and I learned how to tone the mortar.
The mortar, yeah.
Limestone and sand mix.
Wow.
And we had our little measuring spoons out there. So we made 6 different batches. And then we had to calculate up through the measuring spoons to get to a bigger. It was really hard, but we did get a nice color to kind of match the existing.
Oh, lovely!
It turned out really great, and it was a lot of fun. So the wall that goes around the courthouse, there's a lot of. It would probably keep me busy for a good year or more.
Good. Okay. Well, that's always good to know. Now let's turn back to what you do repurpose and why they call you the Salvage Cowboy, and the fact that people come from pretty far away to get some of your artwork.
It's pretty neat. It's I have people coming from Windsor, past Toronto. Like some people drive 3.5 hours one way, which is, you meet a ton of really cool people.
Mhm.
And like I met you on Facebook today. I met a couple of new people on there, and we must have talked for, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes on, and the one lady who I met today, she says, can I say hi to you later on? I said, oh yeah, for sure. Just say hi anytime. I like that part about it. I try to, if somebody follows the page or likes the page, I try to at least say hi to them. I try to introduce myself, ask them how things are going, find out what they like to do. And that way I meet really cool people like you.
Well, thank you. And that too is part of what I want to talk about today, because salvage and reclaiming and doing the hands-on work that you do, not a lot of people think about that in the digital sphere. So first off, kudos to you for being smart enough and savvy enough to understand that you needed a presence on the internet, because it's a great way to get your information out further than just where you are.
Oh yes, for sure. Yeah. It's wide reaching, which like people, I do have some people in the States and that, but there is a lot of people like in New Brunswick and Alberta, and I ship all over Canada. So, and I can ship to the States too. I just haven't done a lot of that, but yeah, no, it's, and it makes it so close. Like you could be in New Brunswick and I could be in Owen Sound. And when you come onto Facebook or onto Skype or something like this, it's like next door.
Yeah. That's the coolest place. Now, James, you don't have a website, but you do have a Facebook page, and it's pretty simple for people. It's Salvage Cowboy, so that's pretty easy to remember. Let's go with what's the biggest piece that you've shipped to someone, and what's the smallest piece you've shipped to someone?
The biggest piece was probably a round window, and I think it went out to New Brunswick. So it had to be specially packed, and then it was I find Canada Post the best for reasonable rates, but they have a package size limit and a weight. Yes. So with the window, I had to go to FedEx. I think it was like 3 feet in diameter or something like that. And then the smallest would be, I shipped out some stars that were maybe an inch by an inch. Canada doesn't really have a discount on small package.
No.
Nothing against Canada Post. They're great service and all that. I wish that they had a little better deal because when somebody's ordering something, you can't really ship anything really for less than about $12 to $14, depending if it fits in a bubble envelope and it'll go through, you can. So it makes it difficult when somebody wants to buy something for $5 or $6 when it's going to cost $14 to ship or whatever, right?
Yeah, don't send shark's teeth to your grandson.
Oh, okay.
Because the shark's tooth was so small, and yet it was $14 to send it to Calgary.
Yeah, that's the thing. But other than that, I've had great luck with Canada Post for service.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
But you have to go with FedEx. Like I did a Newell Post to one couple too, which was very heavy. And it had to be special packed, and glass is double packed, and like I've sent glass out, and I've had great luck with that if you put it in a box and then a second box. So it's interesting trying to figure out how to package something so that it can take some abuse.
Oh, absolutely. And that leads me to, okay, what's the most extreme change you've made with something you reclaimed and turned into what?
I think maybe one thing that really turned out cool is I took a tongue off an old wagon and a pair of blacksmith tongs. I took the blacksmith tongs apart and bended them into support brackets, made the tongue into a coat tree, and then added some coach, and I think it was pretty cool. It sold.
Yeah.
And it was very unique. And the tongue was very aged, very deeply weathered. So the blacksmith tongs went quite well with it. That's the thing where finding pieces that kind of, well, proportions and that match it in style and weather. That's the hardest part when you're building something out of salvage, is you can't often make a mistake, because once you cut the wood,
that's it.
You know, if it's a certain color and a certain tone and a certain weathered look, you might only get, you know, you might only have that one piece to replace the piece that you're trying to do. So that kind of complicates things a bit, but it makes it interesting.
That just so speaks to the artist in you.
Thanks. Yeah.
That you go to that trouble for each and every piece. Now, I know that our audience can go look at some of your pieces on your page, and you'll be able to contact James, not just on his page, but also on BBP TV on the show page. We have his links, we have his information. And do you do custom work?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I get everything from drawings to people who send me. I know another weird one. A couple came in and they wanted a bathroom sink, and they wanted something that no one would have. I had a factory mold from a car engine, so it was a wooden piece, and I ended up using vinegar to separate the glue, pull the front cover off of it, turn it into hinge doors, and then they put a bowl sink on top of it, and they mounted it against a stone wall. It was really gorgeous. So that was where they just said, I want it as weird as possible. Mm-hmm. And I said, this is what I have. And, you know, it turned out pretty, that's the coolest thing. Like, I mean, who would use a car? Like, factory molds were made so that they could do sand casting. So this was half of the engine that they would press into sand to make it was the perfect height. I think I added one board to the top for the sink to sit on, and I ended up with a piece of barn board that was kind of the same color and stuff, and it was kind of neat.
That is so cool. And now I have to rack my brains and figure out what I could put in our much younger home that would make sense. I'll have to think on that. James, I have to say how thrilled I am that you came and joined me today. I hope we were able to give the audience a good view into the artist inside, and perhaps maybe entice somebody out there who comes from Owen Sound to maybe step in and help out and give new life to that courthouse. Because after all, James, if you don't have a big, huge dream, well, what's the point?
Right. No, I agree. It's, you know, you can always dream.
Oh my God, yeah. Dreaming's great. And you have to stretch yourself, because only good things happen outside our comfort zone, right?
Yes.
So of course you're going to want to stretch outside. I'm Elaine Lindsay. I thank my guest, James Machan, for coming here. He is the Salvage Cowboy. And I want to say to everybody out there, happy holidays. And from our home to yours, Merry Christmas. Be well, stay safe, and make sure you wear a mask, please, because there's many, many people out there who may not have the health that you do. So let's be kind. And I'm going to see you next time when we'll be here on New Year's Eve with a bevy of comedians as we kick 2020 to the curb. I'll see you then. Take care.
Brought to you by BBP TV Show